Hello folks, welcome to the Canal channel. Jose. Today we're going to give you an idea how to replace the hydraulic slave cylinder on the clutch system for a 87 to 99 Toyota Tercel Paseo and a Corollas. So, but for all those years, some of these cars, they take different part number. We're just giving you an idea. It's 87 to 99. This is about when this component was used on these little cars. So this is specifically for a 91 to 94 Toyota Tercel. So we're just giving you an idea how to replace this slave cylinder. So in case you're not having any pressure or it's leaking oil from this component, then you can have an idea how to replace it and put the new one in. That's it. Let's jump right into it. So here's your engine compartment, and right over here where the transmission is, there's this component right there. We have taken out the upper hose to show you and expose more so we can, you don't have to do this. We have done this just for a better clear image of this. So there's a fan that goes here, the upper hose, we taking all that out. We put a pan so we can catch some of the oil, because brake fluid is very acidic and it can create stains on your floor. So this is what we're replacing, the new one, or it's used but it's good. And that's the old one. That's the bleed off point for the air, that, and that's the line of the hydraulic side that comes from the master cylinder right underneath there. That's a 10 millimeter flare nut that we have to take off. So we need to disconnect that. We need to take these two 13 millimeter bolts, in our case, off, and then this is going to be pushed off because there's a spring load in there. So you want to grab a rag and put it underneath so any of that oil comes out, and then so it doesn't start leaking into the floor. But remember, put a pan in there so you can actually catch some of that fluid so it doesn't stain your floor. So we're gonna make it operate right now to show you how it works, and so you understand why this hydraulic can fail. It can leak right about this area. So how this piston works is that there's a solid line that goes all the way to your master cylinder right there, and when you press the pedal inside this master cylinder, creates pressure just like the brakes, and all that pressure comes along through that little line, comes inside that, and it creates pressure that it pushes this piston out, and that lever moves. So when you release a pedal, that goes in, the hydraulic fluid goes back in, and that's how it operates to engage and disengage the clutch, because you're pressing the pedal there. There's no linkages, there's no leverage except for that one. Everything's hydraulic from there to there. Before I take that guy out from there, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drain all that liquid out of there as much as I can, and I'm gonna show you how I do that. Because when I put the new cylinder, I want all this oil to be new. So I'm gonna drain that out first, and then pour new oil in there. So when I'm taking this guy out and all that oil starts draining out, new fluid starts going into the line. And then once this piston it gets in there replaced, then I have to add more fluid, new fluid here, and it can actually come all the way to the piston. So I don't want to run that whole old fluid through the whole system. I drain it out and then pour new fluid, which is brake fluid, and then we can have brand new fluid all the way to the piston. So let's do that now. We'll show you how we do this. So to get the oil from there and put it into a container, what we're going to be using a spray bottle nozzle like this. We're going to feed this in just like if it was in a bottle. So that's going to create suction as we do this, and then we're going to transfer that into one like any kind of drink, clear glass or clear plastic bottle with a lid, because be careful, you don't want to spill any of that oil into your paint because it can eat up your paint. So let's do that now. This is the oil that came out of the master cylinder for the clutch. So that's why we tell you, get all that oil as much as you can out of there, because it's going to be contaminated. And that way, when you put new oil, that oil, you don't just keep pouring, you just suck all that oil, clean that reservoir, add new oil, and you're going to have to remove this little thing. It's a plastic floater out, so you can get the nozzle in there to do the good job of getting all that oil out. So now we're going to show you what we did and start cleaning the reservoir. So that's what we have done. We have emptied that reservoir from oil So we're just gonna wipe it and clean as much as we can. So when that new oil comes in and it starts heading towards that slave cylinder, it's clean and starts pushing out the old one out. So now that I have emptied a whole oil from that little master cylinder, what I'm gonna do is I clean it up, and then anything that loosen up is debris or any old oil that's still in there, I'm gonna add some new one to kind of flush it, and then I'm gonna use the same nozzle to suck all that out. And then once I do that, then I'll fill it up, and then we can start working on this side, because I don't want any of that stuff that is still there probably just going to the little master cylinder and into the system. I want to clean as much as I can with new fluid. I'm using brake fluid dot 3. This is what I'm going to be using. So this is what I'm going to be adding. So this is the new stuff. So let's add this, flush it a little bit, and then we can fill it up to start working into the replacing the actual slave cylinder. Now we have removed the old oil, which is this, and it's not much, but at this point, this master cylinder for the clutch system is empty, it's dry. So what we're gonna be doing is, before we start putting our dot 3 into that to be new oil, what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna have to remove the cylinder over there, put take it out, because once you take that out and there's oil up here, gravity is going to start working against you. It's going to start draining out there. So what you do, you wait over here, don't add any liquid here. You change your you change your slave cylinder, you put everything back together, and then you come over here and add your liquid, and that way gravity is not working against you. Now you got gravity working with you. So now let's go replace the cylinder. What we do is we take off this flare nut from here in the bottom, which is a 10 millimeter, and we're going to be using this wrench, 10 millimeter flare nut wrench. And I recommend using those tools for this kind of scenarios, and because they're hollow, they can actually crush, and you don't want to do that. Then we can take out these two 13 millimeter bolts in our case, and once you remove those, this cylinder and this little piston are going to force itself this way, so you're going to have to push it in towards this way so you can take these out or put them back in, because there's tension. That piston wants to go this way. So once you remove this and these two, then you can take it out and start putting the new one. So let's do that and show you how we do it. And as you saw, there's oil coming out of here. So that's why we don't fill up the reservoir on the master cylinder for the clutch system, because all the oils are going to drain in here. So now that we have taken out this line with the tubing wrench for this, now we can take out these two 30 millimeter bolts to remove the cylinder. So now that we have this slave cylinder out, what we're going to be doing is we're going to press this in. Be careful, because there's going to be oil shooting out of here. So face it towards the rack. We're going to press it in and see how dirty it comes out from here. So it's not that dirty, but we're going to open it from this side to see how dirty it is inside there. So as you could see, the spring came out broken in 3 pieces. There's another piece right in here, right there. You can see it right there. So this is broken, the spring. The rubber piece is worn out a little bit. This guy is clean from the inside, but the only thing that it was bad, completely shot, it was the spring. You see, the spring has to be like this. So it broke off from here, somewhere over here. So now we are gonna thread the hydraulic line into this cylinder, which is gonna be facing like this perch line, this bleed off line. We're gonna make sure that this upwards like this, And then once we thread that as much as we can into this by hand, then we can line up these holes to start guiding the bolt and make sure that we end up with a little push rod right into this area as well. That's very important. So let's feed that here, thread it as much as we can, then we can start lining everything else. So now that I have put that hydraulic line into the slave cylinder, I'm gonna guide this rod right here into this little area where the pivot or the fork is, and then I'm gonna put the two 13 millimeters and guide them. So before you start putting those bolts and guiding them there, after you got all this kind of set in there, clean this bolts with a wire brush because there might be some debris or stuff in here, and that's gonna make this process of getting in there harder. So clean them out with a wire brush so everything's smoother. So now we have cleaned the threads of these bolts. Now we have guided the slave cylinder. We have tightened in the just by hand this flare nut for the hydraulic side. The piston is guided into the fork. So now let's guide these two bolts in there and guide them and tighten them. Now that these two 13 millimeter bolts are in, tighten them. We tighten the flare nut with a 10 millimeter flare nut wrench. And this is a flare nut wrench. This is how they look. So now what we have left is to add or dot 3 fluid in top of the master cylinder for the clutch system, and then we're gonna have to bleed off the air on this side. So we need another person to push the clutch pedal all the way down, and somebody else over here bleeding the system out with another container to capture that oil. So we're gonna show you how we do this. This is just like bleeding air out of the brake system. So two people are needed or recommended. That's what we do. One in the pedal, one in the cylinder, bleeding out the air. We'll show you how we do this. So now we have filled up our reservoir with oil, and now what we can do is we can have the person press the pedal and the other person bleed off the air from that fitting with a 10 millimeter wrench on our case, and we're gonna connect that nipple to a hose to a container to capture that oil so it doesn't spray around. So we'll do that now. So now the person in the cab, they're gonna press the clutch pedal all the way down. I'm gonna be in the engine compartment bleeding out the air out of the system by opening the bleed off nipple. And when they're pressing the pedal down, I have to shut it back up, tightening it. Then they can release, and then they press the pedal once again, so they grab more pressure and push it against the little cylinder. Then I can open it again, close it. While I'm doing the opening and closing it, they cannot release the pedal because otherwise they'll grab air from the front and bring it back to the system. That's why we want to push from the top over by pressing the pedal. And if they release while I got this open or loose, air is going to be sucked in. We cannot do that. So now we press the pedal. We're going to press the pedal. I open the nipple, tighten the nipple back up because I let pressure and air come out. Then they can, once that's tight, they can release the pedal and then press again. Then I can do the sequence again. It's gonna be a couple times that we gotta do this. So as you were able to see, the oil was just coming out. It wasn't going in or it wasn't a back and forth deal. It was just out. That one-way check fish tank little valve was keeping it from coming back in or getting some air. This is just the initial big job. Now that I did that a few times, now I need somebody to come over and help me to actually create pressure here. And so I can open and close this so I can get all the air completely out of here because there might be still some air caught in there and I need pressure. So let's do that now. That was just the initial so I can flush the system as well. With that, let's do the actual bleed off. So while we're doing that, we also want to keep an eye on this because this might be just a draining down. It might be air caught in here. So you don't want air getting in there again. So what we do is we close it. We close it and we fill it up now so we can start bleeding out that air. And you want to keep an eye on this level so it's always up and there's no air while when it drops and it starts pushing air through the system. So then the purpose of doing this has been uh, compromised. So let's fill this up and now we can get a second person to help us, and now we can open it and close it while it builds up pressure. So now that I have a second person in the cab, they're gonna press the clutch pedal and they're gonna create pressure here with a hydraulic system. I'm gonna open this, release the pressure, closing it, and then they're gonna release the pedal and push it again to create more pressure. So it's a pressure, 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 so I can get all the air out here. Always remember to check your reservoir for the level to drop. Press the pedal, release. So as you can see, when the person presses the pedal, this rod comes out, pushes the fork, and then when I open this, the pressure gets released here, the fork goes, pushes all this back in, then I close this, and then the person releases the pedal after I close this. Then they press the pedal once again, they create more pressure here, so that's pushing all the hydraulic through the line to here, and then we're bleeding off the air. So that's what we're doing. We're bleeding off the air and the all hydraulic fluid through here. Press the pedal, the piston comes out. So now as soon as I open this, the oil is gonna come out through here and this is gonna go in because there's loss of pressure. It's hydraulic, so we lost it. So let me show you what I mean by that. Pay attention to this little piston here. I'm holding this hose so it doesn't come off with the pressure. Oh, check this out. We tighten it, release the pedal. So there was no change because all the pressure had released. So now we have finished bleed off this system. We have to take this hose off or wrench, make sure this is tight before they release the pedal again. So this is tight. And now that we take this off, we clean around, and then we check our level once again, and then we put our cap and we're done with the replacement of the slave cylinder for this clutch system. Now I put the bleed off a little cap right over this guy. So now that we have all the system back on, we check our fluid. Fluid is good. We put our cap back on. And then we took this hose out on the radiator side and the fan so we could expose more of what's going on here. So if you want to do this, that's extra room you can get to work on this. You just got to drop your fluid level from the upper part of the radiator so it doesn't spill, so you can actually make room for this because the hoses goes right here and the fan is kind of crowded here to do this job. So I just did that to expose more and give you an idea if you want to do that. So let's put our cap back on and we're done with this replacement. And well, folks, hopefully this video was useful and helpful on how to replace the slave cylinder on this Toyota Tercel. And if your system looks like this on your Toyota, this is going to help you and give you an idea. Can help you from the 87 to 99 Toyota Tercel Paseo. And this also for the Corolla and the other models that look like this. It's going to give you an idea and guide you how to replace this slave cylinder on the clutch system. So when you're doing this replacement, all we did was we needed a 10 millimeter tubing wrench to remove the flare nut. And we use that as well for the bleed off point for the air. And then we use a 13 millimeter socket for the two main bolts that hold the cylinder into the transmission. And then we use new oil. We recommend you replacing the oil all the way from the reservoir to the cylinder, so that way you start with the uncontaminated oil and a brand new hydraulic system oil. So pretty simple. We remove some of the components so you could get a better idea what we're doing. You don't need to do that, but if it helps you, that's another thing you can do. So that's pretty much it. And hopefully this video was useful and helpful. For our friends who are watching the video, haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. If you like a video, give us thumbs up, share it, and we'll see you soon with more videos here in the canal, el Chano Jose.